everyone, this is Dr. Anthony Chafee. I'm here with a very special guest today, Dr. Robert Kiltz. He is a fertility endocrinologist specializing in women's health and fertility health, especially. Dr. Kiltz, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, Dr. Chafee, thank you for inviting me. Really a pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine. For those of the people in the audience that don't know your work, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm a fertility specialist at CNY Fertility in the United States and globally, really. I've been doing women's health care, reproduction for 30 years. Prior to that, I studied as an OBGYN doc, a reproductive endocrinologist, which is specializing in IVF and other reproductive issues, miscarriages, failed pregnancy, other genetic disorders. And that's kind of been my focus. But I talk a lot about carnivore and keto and health and wellness and mindfulness. So that's kind of like my focus in life is healing both on the natural side and also the medical side, and integrating again some complementary medicine and spirituality at the same time.
Yeah, nice. And so you talk about obviously the diet side of things and carnivore, and I understand you're practicing carnivore as well. How did you come across this? Like, this isn't obviously something that's all that widespread, and you've been there for a while. So, how did you come about it?
Well, about 20 years, I kind of started getting into the integrative medical side in my practice, integrating yoga, meditation, spirituality, and things like that. And some of my patients were getting pregnant on something called paleo. And I'm like, what is paleo diet? Because, we were generally trained that diet doesn't matter and it doesn't matter what you're doing. And I used to think celiac disease was kind of made up and things. And as I began to read about paleo diet and let's see, and then I kind of found this thing called keto diet. And I was always into exercise and fitness, and I did Weight Watchers for a while, Atkins, and did all those things, working to stay healthy. And yet I had bleeding in my bowels, arthritis, psoriasis, migraines, kidney stones, and so as I don't know, remember who I came across, but I was watching another one of those either diet doctor or low carb, high fat experts. And I saw this guy about my age. I'm 66 now. So it was about 10 to 15 years ago. He was fit and he said, I eat only meat and I don't exercise. And I said, that sounds like something for me. So I did it personally in 1 month. So keto made me feel better, but it wasn't until I did carnivore, did my bowel bleeding, hemorrhoids, kidney stones, migraines, eczema, psoriasis gone. And so I figured if it's working for me and my patients getting better on paleo, that's when I started talking about paleo and keto. But carnivore is one of those things that is just off-putting. So, I was like, oh, I'll give everyone this, but, I don't want to scare them away. But now I talk about carnivore as like the top of the line, and I still intersperse keto and paleo for those that just kind of aren't quite ready for the carnivore craziness.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's totally understandable. I mean, people didn't even know what carnivore was a few years ago. Now, at least it's a term that people bandy around. Whereas, like when I first moved to Australia, people had no idea what the hell I was doing. I would say that, I only eat meat, and they literally look at me like I had 3 heads. I had to explain myself basically almost violently, like 2-3 times a day. Be like, you do what exactly?
Yeah. And I mean, I am not 100% all the time, because at 66, I mean, I've been feeling great for over 10 years. And occasionally with my friends or family, I might have some French fries. I might do, I'd make an ice cream, but you add no sugar to it and it's still good.
Yeah.
And I occasionally sip wine or a martini, but that's sips and it's rare. If you've got a problem and you want to heal it, it's carnivore is the top notch. And I also believe that fasting and 1 meal a day is like the critical component to this.
Okay. So you incorporate fasting along with carnivore as well?
I do 1 meal a day at night.
Yeah.
I personally think that is the very best thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do more than a day, all power to you. But,
Mm-hmm.
as a human being, it's, daily routine, I think, is really critical in life. But I think fasting, if you can't do carnivore or keto, but you can fast on a regular basis, it'll help you tremendously for sure.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Yeah, like it's, there's tons of evidence for that. And what I find interesting is a lot of these studies show similar efficacy with fasting and a fasting mimicking diet, which is, essentially just keto. And do you find that there's an added benefit on carnivore to fasting as well?
Yes, because I've see, some of our theories of medicine are completely wrong in health and wellness. So the bowels are a digesting bucket that you want. Fasting means you have an empty bowels. Well, no one has an empty bowels unless they go on significant fasts. And so by eating only one time a day, you're more likely to maximize the empty bowel syndrome,
Okay.
which ultimately you want an empty bowel, because as long as the bowels are full of mostly carbohydrates, you're always secreting sugar and the other plant products into the bloodstream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the blood from the bowels goes to the liver. Mm-hmm. So as long as you have sugar, again, a complex carbohydrate plant-based diet always secretes sugar into the bowels or into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
All the blood goes to the liver, and the liver does what it's meant to do with sugar and amino acids, which is make fat. Mm-hmm. And so glycation is the leading cause of all disease.
Yeah.
That means our bodies, our bloodstream has excess sugar for a tremendous long time, basically the day you're born to the day you die. Mm-hmm. And so I actually believe insulin is not the culprit in any of this. Mm. It's only sugar, along with the other plant phytochemicals, poisons, the antigens, and then the fermentation of the carbs in the bowels due to the microbiome, mm-hmm. Which is fermenting and killing us essentially. So if you can fast, even though you like to eat carbs, mm-hmm. if you could go on a 2 to 3 day fast, but no one can do that at any real regularity. Mm-hmm. And I think that you want to get rid of the antigens and the fermentation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So how have you incorporated this in with your patients? Or
I started off because I write a lot. And if I don't write something that I can understand and they can understand, but I kind of write downloadable, easy to read and understand about keto, which it really incorporates keto carnivore. Our next version has carnivore as sort of like, this is it. I mean, it's in here, but keto is that buzzword. So if I give them these things, the family building guide for fertility, and my keto is really for fertility. You can buy these on Amazon or download them for free from my websites, but I talk about it incessantly, mm-hmm. because of, so much of medicine is out of control cost-wise. In America, it's out of control. Yeah. And so I speak about it, I write about it, and I do my blogs about it. And I offer literature. And then I share your website and all the others that are in this keto carnivore space. Mm-hmm. That I think is really, really radical.
Nice. Yeah. And then, and how are you seeing this, be affected in just the fertility world? Like, how is this helping your patients?
Well, there are so many people on our Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook that are sharing their stories that, either keto and carnivore really reduced their inflammation and or suddenly they delivered a baby naturally and didn't miscarry. So, I'm not a big data. Data to me sometimes can be distracting. Mm-hmm. Lies, damn lies, and statistics and science. Really what I've found is like you're telling your story. and so many other experts are telling their personal story, and we're sharing those personal stories. And I've just time and time again, all of their diseases go away.
Yeah.
But in our case, fertility, which is the foundation of life, is reproduction.
Yeah.
You know, people tell me, oh, I'm healthy, but I just can't get pregnant or stay pregnant. Well, if you're not getting pregnant or staying pregnant, you're not healthy. And health and wellness is in the success of the human body in what it's here to do, which is to create and reproduce. And PCOS and metabolic disorder, endometriosis, adenomyosis, and fibroids are so common. Pelvic pain. You know, PCOS starts in the early years now, 13, 12, 11. I think the damage happens in utero because, you know, we're all eating a standard diet, which is getting through the placenta, damaging the reproductive organs at a very early age. But it's all about stories. The more people tell the story, you know, that's where I'm seeing the big change in this field. You know, the more we complain and blame about others, the least we're going to have of really making a change here. But now it's about, we're all sharing the stories. It's crowd and community sourced healthcare. That's what we need in the fertility world and the neurologic and cardiovascular and, you know, infinite areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you see some people detracting from these things. You know, people saying like, well, I've reversed this, I've done this, I've done these sorts of things. People get mad. It's like, well, that's just anecdotal. And it's like, okay, so I guess it didn't happen then. You know, I guess this person didn't actually reverse their Crohn's and get pregnant. And, you know, what I think of that is more of that's actually running the experiment. You can have all the studies, you can have all the literature, but when you run a real world experiment, when you try this with your own life, does it work or not? And, you know, as Richard Feynman, the physicist, said, it doesn't matter how brilliant your theory is, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. And so, you know, people can tell me all day that, oh yeah, you're going to die, you're going to do this, and yet I'm not. And so, you know, it's wrong.
I think, you know, it was William Davis, David Perlmutter. It was Gary Taubes. That was sort of like the book that changed. I kept on reading it and listening it. And there was another gal, The World Turned Upside Down by Richard Feynman. And so many books out there. But I recently found a book by Dr. Salisbury.
Yeah.
Dr. Salisbury steak.
Yeah.
Like in the 1800s, the guy figured out that all of his men were dying of dysentery due to plants.
Yeah.
He fed them steak and coffee and they all got better.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think with you know, I started doing videos about 20 years ago, and I was kind of mostly focusing on meditation and prayer and positive intentions. Rhonda Byrne, I think from Australia, I don't know if you've ever read The Secret and understand the concepts of the mind and all of this, but I focused on that. And then as I learned more, but this is now the source for medical health and wellness. Yeah. And the patients everyone's following everyone. And the more we can share what you did to get to the health and wellness, and all of us are responsible for our own health care. No doctor can really be responsible for my health care. I am. And so I think that, you know, we're finding someone that we're learning from. And as I went, you know, Weight Watchers, Atkins, paleo, keto, carnivore, you know, I had to personally experiment with those things, even though, you know, this stuff has been around by Salisbury and, you know, it goes Banting and way before that. You know, our ancient heritage as tribal hunters is really, really what you are. But, you know, you still get, you know, comments like, what? Come on. Yeah. Where's the paper? And I'm like, if you wait for the paper that's going to solve your medical problem today, you're dead.
Yeah. And that's that was what someone said I'm sure you're familiar with Atul Gawande, who wrote like Complications and Better and things like that. And one of the lines in Better, he was talking to this guy who dealt with cystic fibrosis, and he had the best numbers out of everyone. And he was, he did things in a very particular way, and he did things differently than the the normal guidelines. And Gawande asked him about this, and he just sort of laughed and said, if you practice evidence-based medicine, you're always going to be 2 years behind the curve, and
or more, or more.
Yeah, yeah.
It's evidence-based medicine is just a model that we've been sold as doctors. And so we've missed so much that's available in health and wellness. And again, the scientific studies are all funded by a mission.
Yeah.
And it's the funding a carnivore diet. But, diets are hard to come by anyway, because, it's like, what did you eat last week? I'm telling you, I ask everyone, what'd you eat? I ate healthy. Well, I ate clean. No. What did you eat? Well, I ate meat or vegetables. But no. What did you eat exactly? That's hard for all of us. I can only remember what I eat for the last 5-10 years because I eat the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. But it is the science of getting your papers published. It must meet the mission of the publishers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And so, people ask me to participate in science and research. I'm saying, listen, I already know what the answer is. You don't have to believe me. Don't do it if you don't want. But we're meant to eat fatty meat probably once a week because food was hard to come by. Drink water and breathe air. And we likely didn't run on a treadmill and go for a walk in nature because you were going to be taken down by the wild beast quite readily. Mm-hmm. Why did we eat plants or figure it out? Well, basically, if you couldn't kill the wildebeest and you were like starving, you were going to eat a mushroom or you're going to eat a fruit and a vegetable. And God bless you, if you survived it, you were able to maybe reproduce. But plants are the cause of all disease in humanity, unfortunately.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that, and Salisbury, already nailed it, in the 1800s, which I think is amazing. And, that's like sort of what I'm trying to write now, basically is just arguing that the so-called chronic diseases that we face nowadays are not diseases per se, but toxicities, toxic buildup of species inappropriate diet and a lack of species specific nutrition, in plain terms, too many plants, not enough meat. And, and this can, obviously there are genetic issues and there's trauma and childbirth and delivery, and there's problems that come. And that was the mainstay of medicine for thousands of years. And now it's chronic disease management. And it's,
I went to medical school at UC Davis. I did not get into my OB/GYN residency. So I took a year of internal medicine. Mm-hmm. And I really loved it and I was going to stay it. But then I realized, this is like, all I'm doing is writing a prescription. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea. So my sister died of diabetes at age 52. And one of my best friends from medical school, Dave, died of lymphoma at 52. Mm-hmm. Those two events about 10 to 15 years ago, said, okay, now wait a minute. Why did Dave die healthy? Yeah. Why did my sister die of diabetes since age 4? And her diet was plant-based and take insulin. And I don't remember who said it. It might have been Sarah Hallberg, who just passed of cancer, by the way. Wow. She is Virta Health with Peter Attia. But it was the same reason my friend Dave died and my sister died, is because plants are poisonous. And vegetables, fruit, fiber, seeds, and nuts cause cancer. 3 meals a day of that same stuff is the deadliest thing we do. But it is so radical. I'm Italian. My family, I'm a foodie. We love food. Of course we do. If you don't love food, you're dead. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, our DNA is amazing. Our diseases are not due to dysfunctional DNA or genetics, by the way.
Mm.
I have cystic fibrosis, genetically predisposed people that don't have CF.
Yeah. Wow.
Huntington's, and I'll go down the list of every genetic
Oh, really?
disorder.
Even Huntington's?
It's even Huntington's.
Wow.
It's an environment due to eating a deadly diet. Because remember, when inflammation damages your DNA,
Mm-hmm.
it damages, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the glycobiome and glycobiology.
No, I haven't seen that book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just one of these things. Now, the glycobiome is the mucopolysaccharide layer that protects every epithelial lining of your body.
Yeah.
It's a sugar layer, mucin, negatively charged sulfates. It's sugar. When you eat a lot of sugar, what happens to a sugar layer? It dissolves it.
Yeah.
Like dissolves like. So our thousands of years of eating a plant-based diet, now it's like plant-based diet is like heaven.
Mm-hmm.
It destroys the glycobiome, which now allows the microbiome to attack you.
Right.
One, plus glycation. So glycation ultimately damages what part of your body?
Well, when it gets in, yeah. Well, I mean, your blood and your blood and
Every
yeah,
single particle of your body is damaged by glucose. Now, do you know that glucose, here's the interesting part. Glucose is just another glycan, and glucose is not the energy of the mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
Acetyl-CoA is.
Yeah.
So here, because again, everyone says that glucose is energy for the mitochondria, and keto is the conversion of burning sugar to burning fat.
Mm-hmm.
I will bet you that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you know that is because, number one is, do you know anyone who has no fat in their bloodstream?
No.
How about has no fat in their cells?
No, absolutely not.
So why would the body burn sugar when acetyl-CoA from fatty acids is there fast as you know?
Yeah.
Can you explain it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now anorexia nervosa, are they at risk of dying quickly and suddenly? Yep, big time. Because they do not have what?
Yeah, no fat.
Fat.
Yeah.
So now what's the purpose of glucose in the bloodstream? That's the question. Glycosylation.
Okay.
So again, you and I know nothing about this, but I can tell you this is the game changer.
Okay.
See, everyone's focused on the microbiome. Microbiome is bullshit. Sorry. The microbiome tells people to take bacteria and yeast. It's kind of like spread it all over your skin and all over your eyes. Would you recommend that to anyone?
Nope.
Nope. So the bowels are like the most sensitive, protective layer of your body. But what actual layer is protecting us? The mucopolysaccharide glycobiome, which is negatively sulfated and heparinized to protect you from the microbes. So when that layer gets damaged, so think of it as a lipid layer with proteins and glycans spreading all over it, which are the finger projections to tell you your HLA, your DNA, your immune system, your adhesion systems, even sperm and eggs and embryos and endometrium contains the glycobiome, which is critical for the sperm and egg interactions.
Okay.
So the bowels, I mean, as a kid, I had bowel problems and migraines. Couldn't figure it out. I was dyslexic, ADHD and OCD, which you could probably understand. But I didn't understand why, again, until I was 55. I discovered all this at 50, really went hardcore carnivore at 55. All of it gone. And so you and I think insulin resistance is a real thing, don't you? It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
It's impossible. Insulin resistance is what is the seller to sell you more drugs and insulin, like the cholesterol drugs, because you and I know cholesterol. Listen, my family is high cholesterol. They live to 90 and over 100, right? And I have high cholesterol, but I will tell you that insulin doesn't cause disease, but insulin actually is the most valuable hormone of your body.
Okay.
What does it help you become? Fat.
Yeah.
And if you're not fat and there's a famine, or you get pregnant in a famine, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so the idea, so glucose is the poison. Now, if I inject a bolus of glucose in someone, 10 times the amount of glucose that they need, what will happen to them?
Yeah.
They will become in a coma, but their heart will not stop beating. But my theory is glucose as another glycan, like many other glycans, is critical for the neurotransmitters. Remember, neurotransmitters are glycosylated proteins, and they are created so fast.
Yeah.
Without that happening, that we cannot exist. So all the chronic diseases, ALS, MS, even Huntington's, is a neurodegenerative disorder due to constant damage from glucose and other glycans in excessive amounts in our body, which aren't supposed to be there.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
It's a hard one. This took me a while to figure out, because I couldn't figure out, well, if you look at the metabolic pathways, sugar goes to fat in the liver, and amino acids go to all the precursors that essentially make fat. But remember, amino acids and simple sugars go into the hepatic portal system that go directly to the liver. When you eat fat, where does it go?
Oh, it's just through your lymphatics.
That's it.
Yeah.
So why would it go to the lymphatics, but amino acids and sugars must go to the liver?
Yeah, because they need to be
because they need to be processed.
Yeah.
The liver is the only organ in the body that responds to insulin and makes fat. Because liver failure patients are all diabetic. They have high insulin and they have high glucose levels, but they are emaciated. They have paper thin skin and no fat on them.
Yeah.
So my theory is, and I'm talking in theory, but I'll bet $1 billion on this. The liver's number one function is to make fat. And it does really well at that. But you cannot name a disorder where the liver doesn't detoxify of any significance. Can you?
No.
I mean, everyone says the liver detoxifies, correct?
Yeah.
What does it detoxify? Alcohol, Tylenol? Well, those are all modern made constructs. I mean, I don't know how much alcohol we made 50,000, 100,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Did we?
I don't think so. I think like oldest records go back like 6,000 years, have beer like 6,000 years ago or something like that. I don't know of anything further than that.
The colon cancer, colon diseases, all gastrointestinal diseases, lung cancer, brain cancers are all on the rise in people. I mean, I'm 66, but in my daughter's age, in the 30s. And it's sad. And as a fertility specialist, I see many young people working to preserve their fertility, or they've already gone through cancer therapy. And I talked to an oncologist 2 days ago, and these concepts we're talking about are foreign, and so foreign. And again, when people don't know that vegetables ferment in our GI tract, and what do they ferment from? Bacteria and yeast.
Yeah.
And so when you eat bacteria and yeast because they tell you to, but the plants come with the bacteria and yeast that ferments, makes alcohol, aldehydes, heat, gas, and methane. There's no wonder that all of us are suffering in a very, very, very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people are suffering. And to me, the answer is carnivore, one meal a day. But when we say carnivore, it's not lean meat, it's fatty meat.
Yeah. 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 I was trying to emphasize that with people as well, because most people think that, just eating more fat than they usually eat, that's eating a lot of fat or enough fat. And generally they're having clear issues that say you need more fat. No, I'm definitely eating enough fat. It's like, well, no, if you were, then you wouldn't be having this problem. And but people don't realize just how much fat that you need to eat. They because we've been just drilled in that just any amount of fat is bad.
I mean, so see, I tell people, no matter their size, they're beautiful and perfect. Yeah. If you're fat and there's a famine, you survive. If you're skinny in a famine, you die. Mm-hmm. The genetics that actually get us fat are actually the best genes ever created by the human line. All right. Now, again, it's counter. Oh, you've got to lose weight. I never tell a patient to lose weight ever. Because, see, everyone thinks that the fat is the cause of inflammation. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. When you fill the bowels with carbohydrates, remember, you're fueling the digester to ferment. If you look at the farms around the world, they have these digesters. They throw all the waste in it and water, and they come with the bacteria and yeast that make heat gas methane, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea is that we're just not open to. So if you're fat and you go carnivore keto, one meal a day, in 1 week, I'll bet you $1 billion you feel amazing. Yeah. In a month, it's a game changer. Yeah. But the moment you see the 3 meals a day, especially if it's a high protein, low fat diet, remember, protein must be converted to fat in the liver via insulin. Occam's razor is the simple answer, is the one. mTOR and all these ideas of ages, and again, we're creating a story that for most of us idiots like me, that I didn't understand, even as a doctor, right? And I read these papers and I'm like, simplicity, please. And if you haven't, there's so many blogs of people doing this. It's simple. I eat steak and eggs and butter and cream, and I don't eat vegetables, fruit, or fiber anymore. And I feel like $1 billion. And so the cause of disease is really simple. Yeah. We don't eat fatty meat anymore. Because you and I have been convinced it's the cause of disease. Yeah. And I hate to be the bearer. I take care of many vegans and vegetarians and Mediterraneans. And if you can, see, vegetarians are easy. Cream, butter, eggs, cheese, 1 meal a day. That's the way. Now, as a vegan, coconut fat, coconut oil, because fat's from an animal, oil's from a plant. Let's not be confused here. That if we could use some terminology, but plants make phytochemicals that are in the oils to benefit the plant. Yeah. And it's there in some way to see. I see plants are actually the predators of the universe, and we're just the prey. Yeah. We smoke them, we drink them, we inject them. And listen, here's what I say. The masters eat the Wagyu A5, and the meek eat the mush. And the masses are convinced to eat the mush while the masters eat the A5 Wagyu steak. And they tell us, an impossibility of eating a plant-based burger. And there's only one reason we want to eat a plant-based burger, because it's a burger. And your brain wants a burger. And yet, now we're making man-made food out of DNA or whatever the particles are in the lab. I mean, is that really where we want to go
Yeah.
in this world?
Yeah. I hope not.
I mean, but that's really up to those who recognize that we have to do, agriculture and grazing in a way that is truly sustainable. I mean, everyone's blaming the cows for like global warming. I'm sorry. Last I looked, I think human beings are the blame,
Yeah.
and not the cows.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, just, animals are part of the environment. There's symbiosis, and so, when we first came to, well, when Europeans first came to America, there was hundreds of millions of buffalo running around, a bunch of antelope and deer. So, there were actually more animals, and more cows in the US than there were before. And the Great Plains were some of the most fertile land in the world. The grass was 9 feet tall, and that's because the animals were replenishing these nutrients, and and these things evolved with the grasslands. The plants evolved with the animals, and when you start screwing with these complex systems, you get complex problems as a result of that.
I think we've done a darn amount of damage to this beautiful world, and it's not going to be healed overnight, but the global heal, it does all the time, and whether we're here or not, it's going to do what it does. And I think it is important for us to continue the conversation of how we get back to a true proper human diet, as Ken Berry likes to say. The word diet is so deadly to me. We are really, what's our nutritional solution for a human being? I say, whether it's 3 million or 2 million, or how many millions of years you and I came out of the trees, maybe, but we didn't get down on all fours to eat the grass. We ate the grass eaters. And you and I were hunting, I don't know, 10, 50, 100,000 years ago. And we're not looking from the top of the mountain and saying, hey, let's go eat the grass with the cows. We're going to go hunt the big beast. And that was really the pride of what we did. But, exactly what happened in the world to take us to where we're at, it's all a great story. But whether we're plant eaters or animal eaters or a mixture, but if you're sick, carnivore, 1 meal a day is the kick-ass way.
Yeah. And that's the thing, obviously, we do come from a herbivorous past, and more recently than, say, canines and felines, we have some of these defenses still in the mix. And then obviously the different populations that have been exposed to agriculture, further back than others, we're going to have a little more defenses as well. And that made us, very, very, robust species. We were able to survive during lean times, whereas a lion, if it can't get meat, it's going to die. And whereas we can sort of figure out, we can sort of eat a yam or something like that, and sort of get by long enough to then get a kill. And so, we become very successful in that. But there's a difference between, being able to eat something to survive and what is optimal to thrive. And so I completely agree with you that would be just, meat in the exclusion of everything else.
Well, it's again, this is so fascinating to me because I'm a little neurotic on talking about this, but I say what you put in the mind and the mouth and the motion of the miracle machine is critical in life. And fat turns out to be the only fuel for the human body. And that's it. And that's why type 1 diabetics become skinny, because they simply can't make fat, because they don't have insulin. And why liver failure patients become cachectic is because they can't make fat in the liver.
Yeah.
And the standard diet around the globe is actually a low-fat diet. That's it. And it turns out if you simply up the animal fat, and eat 1 meal a day, you'll heal significantly. And I take care of a lot of women in early pregnancy where they have a significant nausea and vomiting. And I tell them, do not eat. You want to rest. You want to drink water, sips or ice. Many mammals actually hibernate. And there's actually many great studies on bears that they hibernate. They neither drink, piss, poop, or eat. they gestate and deliver a cub, and they lose no muscle mass and no bone mass. See, everyone thinks I'm going to lose bone mass. I better eat, muscle mass or bone mass. I've got to eat calcium and protein. It's bullshit. Sorry. And again, I know that there's so much protein sparing. I'm telling you, it's a low fat diet is deadly, but so is a high carb plant-based. Variety and spices, in my opinion, are deadly. Onions, garlic, spice, tomatoes are all part of the deadly particles, because you wouldn't grind up garlic and put it in your eyes. The silent diseases happen inside the gut and the rest of the body. And when these spices, even pepper, like I do salt, butter, cream, fat, and to me it's beef and beef liver and bone broth. But when you eat a low fat diet, you're not protecting the glycobiome. We give intralipids, which is not the best. It's a fat, oil, plant-based oil that helps to reduce inflammation. This is why cod liver oil was likely helpful, or chicken soup was likely helpful, because it contained a lot of fat. But ancient, but now modern chicken soup, you skim off the fat. Yeah. And you add onions and garlic, which is deadly. But I know it sounds crazy to tell a pregnant woman with nausea, vomiting to not eat. But number one, they must be fat and they must rest, because the baby is saying, do not put those poisons in my body, because plants contain the poisons to make you infertile and or make you fertilizer. Because the plants are live organisms that are smarter than you and I. Because ultimately, our brains aren't the smartness, it's our DNA that drives all the function in the body that happens in the background. Yeah. So, again, our smartness thinks it's all the science that is the answer. But it really is an ancient concepts and ideas that are built into our DNA. And so is it built in the plant's DNA. And you know this, there are plants that are carnivores. Yeah. And plants like you and I don't want to die yet, but we know we're going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, that's very true. Think about all the biochemical processes that go on in our body and are perfectly regulated. Like just pH, for example. This is just so exacting how our body takes care of these things, and our sodium and potassium and magnesium, all these things is just kept at exacting degrees, and we don't have any control of that. We don't have any upper control over that. And then we think that we're so smart, we should micromanage these things. People eating, drinking, basic water, like, oh, this is what I need to do, is I need to keep my pH in balance. Like, buddy, you are not that smart. And if you were smart, you just leave your body to it.
Theranos, the company that went bankrupt, and the issues that with testing, we overly test everyone. And there's really no evidence that preventive medicine helps anyone in the sense of standard medicine and testing. So I kind of say, listen, you can do a test, you're going to have 50 million different answers by every clinician, and many of the tests are driven, and the norms are within the standard American unhealthy diet. So, when my friend got cancer, Dave Kilmer, and then died 3 to 6 months later, and we're trying to figure out why, or Sarah Hallberg dies of cancer and she's got a healthy diet. Mm-hmm. It's simply the testing that we recommend to everyone is strictly a false premise based on the ideas that, sugar is the energy and you have to eat lots of plants and fat is the deadly culprit of everything.
Yeah. You did mention something that, when women are pregnant, they're obviously getting nausea. This is a normal thing. I've several friends and people that I've spoken to that have gone through pregnancy on a carnivore diet and felt next to no morning sickness and had a great job. But then there are some that actually had a very big aversion to meat. And actually, one friend of mine, she was trying to do a carnivore pregnancy, but just the smell of meat just really put her off. And I sort of theorized that it was about, if meat doesn't taste good, that means your body doesn't want you to eat it all. You should just chill out for a bit. And if they sort of waited long enough, then that hunger response would come back. But, I never have gotten a chance to test that. Have you run into that?
Well, it's our food aversions are psychologically fixed in so many ways. So it's hard to separate out the why part of this because, from an early age, you've been told, well, you don't eat that, or you can only have a little bit. And the amygdala and the brain is like powerful. And so my sense is that however we lived thousands of years ago, and many animals, they're not getting up on a treadmill saying, I got to work out to stay healthy. Fat is like a very, very valuable asset on your body. And likely you got pregnant and you're hanging around in your cave, you're staying low. And your nausea and vomiting says, do not put anything in this body. How is the bear doesn't eat, drink, piss, or poop, and yet a beautiful baby gestates? Because listen, all of our concepts are wrong. Even the amount of water we're supposed to eat is wrong. And so if you hibernate, my bet is we probably had a hibernating existence in some way that, in the winter, how much energy, everyone tries to lose weight, and how easy is it? It's not. Well, why not? Because it's not meant to be easy to lose weight. We spend all this money on 3 meals a day and then all this money in trying to lose weight, but we don't. It's saying, guys, like if you have nausea and vomiting in pregnancy, it says don't eat. Was a cracker around 10 to 100,000 years ago? Yeah. And remember, Salisbury basically told us they were even if you look at all the armies of the world, they were eating biscuits for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and bread and water was it. But the Portuguese, right? And if you look at the books by Kurlansky on cod and of salt, without cod and salt, and even the Mongols, like these armies, they were fueled with the food we were meant to eat. Yeah. But nausea, vomiting, and pregnancy is a protective mechanism, and hibernation is the very best thing. I tell people don't exercise. My theory is, in general, the 5 causes of all disease: sugar, not just glucose, by the way, all sugars, phytochemicals, the plant antigens, lectins, oxalates, phytates, and more, fermentation of fiber in your gut, all gut. And then the 5th one is exercise. Exercise in general is harmful and deadly. Again, we all like to look like gladiators and show off, and it's all reproductively defined. And I get up and I move, I do things, right? But when my knee hurts, what do I do with that? I rest. And so this idea that we're convincing everyone, somehow the food industry made a deal with the government. We're going to create a healthy lifestyle, and we're going to fund the healthy lifestyle so you don't come after my sugary drinks. Right? And so remember, the food industry, again, I love food, and this is not a blame, but all the marketers are convincing us that your problem is you're too sedentary and you're slothful, right? But yet we've shown that more exercise is just about making us fatter and fatter and fatter. But remember, being fat is not the problem. It's the food that got you fat. Yeah. That's the problem, and keeps you unhealthy. Because even if you're 300 pounds, if you go carnivore, in 2 to 4 weeks, you will feel like $1 billion.
Yeah.
And if a famine hits, guess what? You survive, because that's what we're meant to do. So I know it's counter. I mean, look, I used to be a maniac triathlete, but my back, like even back aches and back neurologic problems are due to inflammation in the bowels. Remember, if you look at the anatomy, the nervous system is intraperitoneal, and then it goes out, and the discs are highly inflamed by the GI tract that is highly inflamed. Mm-hmm. What's the temperature of a digesting bowels compared to a week of empty bowels? Mm-hmm. Different, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And so these ideas are a little radical. And by simply going keto carnivore 1 meal a day, and again, I like the keto is still a word, but what does keto mean? Keto means high fat, low to no carbs. Yeah. That's what it means, right? That's what we've labeled it. It's made up, by the way. Mm-hmm. And acetyl-CoA, acetoacetate, beta hydroxybutyrate, and acetone are all in equilibrium. This idea that ketones are the fuel is incorrect. Acetyl-CoA is. Mm. And basically, I think it was Thomas Seyfried that coined the keto glucose ratio, right? Ketones to glucose. Now, I don't measure anything personally. Yeah. If you feel great, you know you're doing the right thing in general, but not always. Mm-hmm. But basically, a ketogenic diet means your glucose levels are low. But remember, if you eat 3 to 6 plant-based diets and protein diets a day, you're always keeping your glucose and likely other glycans. Remember, fructose, sucrose, glucose, galactose are all lactose are all glycans essentially, mono, di, and polysaccharides, which are in our bloodstream higher than ever. That causes glycation. For some reason, some people are more susceptible to glycation than others. Maybe those at higher cholesterol levels have a protection, but maybe there's some people, again, as an Italian Mediterranean, my family's family tended to live longer, higher cholesterol. We all know the Ansel Keys story was all made up. Yeah. Because scientists are no different than anyone else. Fame and fortune is what we're all seeking, rather than fertility and health for all of us. Yeah. I hope I'm not going too much on, here and there, but the Occam's razor says the simple answer is the one. Yeah. Fat is the only fuel for your body and mitochondria, never sugar. You do convert amino acids and sugars to fat in the liver, but ultimately, low fat is deadly for you. Whether you don't carry it when there's a famine or you don't eat it on a routine basis, it's going to kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. You were saying about exercise and that the reason that people are fat or they're overweight or they're having problems is because they don't exercise enough. But that doesn't, people always say, I remember looking at, animals in the wild, they're just like ripped. I was wondering, I was like, why are those so ripped? Why are we just, the only squishy animal on earth? How do we become so dominant? And people just said, oh, exercise, are always running around. But, that doesn't explain animals in the zoo. I've never seen a fat lion or a fat giraffe, and certainly haven't seen a fat zebra, and they live in cages in their entire life. There's the definition of a sedentary lifestyle, but they're eating what they're supposed to eat. And so they look like, they're ripped. They look like they're on steroids, and they look fairly similar to a zebra in the wild. It's not that much different,
For 10 years, I have not exercised.
Yeah.
About 8 months ago-ish, time goes away, it zips by. I had gained 20 over COVID, and I'm like, okay, I got on my bike, I bike down in Florida. I stay off the roads up in upstate New York. I do some resistance stuff, which I think, and I got down my 15, 20, and I'm back to where I've been for 10 years and more. And literally I do a little bit. I think that stretching and light, again, resistance stuff. I do pottery. The more we do yoga, Tai Chi, and things like that, or we work in the yard, we build things, we make things, we're creative. I mean, animals, they're making a nest or they're hunting for food. I mean, when was the last time you went hunting for food? And you may, and there are a number of people that I know, Keto Savage and a lot of others are hunters. And I'm not a hunter. I either, nowadays it's just, you order it all online. I mean, I get Snake River Farm ribeyes delivered, frozen. It's liver from Hudson Farms, a duck liver, butter, cream, and eggs. I mean, that's my nutrition. But too many people are getting knee replacements, hip replacements. And interesting, there was a story, I can't remember where it was, of a orthopedic surgeon, I think up in Alaska or something, that got a hip replacement. And he had a psychiatric breakdown. They found out it was toxicity from the hip replacement. So if Georgia Ede, I don't know if you've interviewed her yet, but she's rocking. I've learned a lot from Georgia Ede, that plant-based diet contains the poisons and basically anxiety, depression, all these diseases that we're medicating for, even psychological, get better on a carnivore 1 meal a day plan. And again, high fat is where it's at because it's what your body requires. I sell some supplement lines. We do a liver and a beef organ supplement through Kiltz's Nutritional Solutions, but you don't need those things. I say if you can, really, we're supposed to eat real food, drink water. Maybe from time to time you have a sip of alcohol, in a celebration. I once in a while I have, my friends like to smoke cigars and I sit there and, you do this, but it's rare. And really it's minimal. If you're addicted to these things and you shouldn't touch it, do not. I do coffee with occasional butter. Is coffee from a plant? Damn right it is. Does it want to control us? Damn right it does. And not to say, oh, this is good for us. I think, interesting enough, when you add the fat to your carbs or your protein, you coat and protect the glycobiome, which minimizes the proliferation of the microbiome, which again, bowel pain, ulcers, GERD, is all breakdown of the glycobiome. And if we could minimize that, that would be better. And so, I always say, if you're going to exercise, do it light and easy, and a little bit of resistance. And I don't put anything added on this stuff because, as I get older, I notice that if I try to do too much, it hurts me. And I want to protect, the miracle machine. You can choose to kind of look like, you're younger, Sean Baker. I mean, again, this is what I'm trying to help for so many people that don't look like us. How do we inspire them to be happy with where they're at? Zach Bitter always says, start with where you're at. And by being happy with the beautiful body, even if it's 300 or 400 or 500 pounds, be happy with that miracle machine. That's the mindset. As you begin to understand that, if there's a famine, you're in rockin' amazing shape. But by going carnivore, keto, 1 meal a day, I mean, I eat so much less that they're $140 for a steak, right? But it lasts me 5 days. Oh, wow. And I only eat 1 meal a day. Now, again, I'm post-reproductive years. although, at 66, plenty of people having babies, but you need a lot less calories. I mean, I don't even, if someone says, well, how many calories do I need? I have no idea. But if you're gaining weight, you're either eating too much food or you're not exercising enough. But now, why would you spend money on food and try to exercise more when you could just simply eat less food? That's why this one meal a day at night before you go to bed, because when you rest, that's when you want the blood flow to the bowels. When you exercise, where's the blood going?
Yeah.
Periphery. Is that good for our digestion? No way. And I personally recommend napping. I do if I could get 3 in, like, I think at any age, napping is really, as kindergartners, it's like, or preschoolers, it's time for a nap. Mm-hmm. But what do we now do? It's time for a snack and lunch and a snack. If you simply did meditation and prayer and went for a light walk and eliminated those meals, even if I'm going to eat a little something for breakfast, but I say one meal, maybe a snack, which I sometimes will do a little salami and Parmesan, or my leftover ribeye, which is always black and blue, black and blue.
Nice. Yeah. Like, you look at different cultures, they actually follow that exact model, like the siesta in Mediterranean countries.
Yes.
You take a break, you take a nap, you have a bit of a nap, you park under a tree and you just pass out for an hour or two and then get back to work. I wish I could nap.
We can't. See, are you in residency? You're in residency?
Yeah. So I left my original program for a family emergency. So I took a few years off and was doing humanitarian work in Bangladesh. And so, I'm just back into it again. So it's all the on-calls and misery of all that.
And what's your current residency in?
Neurosurgery.
And which is amazing specialty. And I'm sure you're in this like me. I'm in traditional. I'm a surgeon, reproductive endocrinologist. And I still operate a lot, but but I still talk about all this stuff, so that once we've done the surgical correction, they're able to heal, and then maybe help prevent these things. But even, I will sometimes put my headset on. I listen to either some music or a small book story of positivity. I go through my prayer list, gratitude list, and I might just sit back in a chair and close my eyes and I say, okay, give me 5 minutes. And I can't remember who it was, and I apologize. Some of these really great, amazing keto carnivore experts talking on this. See, our ATP. Have you ever measured ATP in the blood? Nope. Have you ever measured glycogen?
No.
No. Have you ever, where is glycogen? Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So my thought is that by resting, we likely rebuild some of our ATP stores. Glycogen storage is a glycoprotein, which is critical for adding back to the glycobiome, that it's critical to have those glycans ready for glycosylation. So our rest actually rejuvenates our ATP stores and also rejuvenates our glycogen stores. But remember, glycogen and glucose is made in the human body.
Yeah.
Right. So when I learned, I think it was David Feynman, I don't know how many years ago, over 10 years ago, and I read, and it was like, or Richard Feynman actually, that carbohydrates are not required in the human diet.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's not what they teach us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So nucleic acids, fatty acids, amino acids, and glycans are actually the building blocks for the human body.
Mm-hmm.
And the fuel for the mitochondria is ATP from fat.
Mm-hmm.
Glucose in the cytoplasm of the liver makes pyruvate. But remember, that also makes lactate. And this is why cancer cells exist. So Otto Warburg, 100 years ago, with Hans Krebs, sort of created this pathway. Remember, if you believe the science is true here, you're always led down the path here. But guess what? If the science was incorrect here, and the answer was actually over here, but we're so far off the path. Remember, glucose is the primary energy of the cell. And once you've used up your glucose, who do you know that has zero glucose in the bloodstream?
No one. Yeah.
No one. So who do you know has no fat in their bloodstream? Nobody. Again, that they're acetoacetate, beta hydroxybutyrate, acetone, and acetoacetate are the main culprits in this. But if you draw blood in a standard eater, are you going to find zero ketones?
Shouldn't.
No, there's not zero. They're always there.
Yeah.
There's always ketones. So if you always have ketones, why would it use glucose for energy? If our theory is ketones are the energy, right? The rate limiting factor is actually oxygen. Okay. So, when we run and use our burst of ATP, right? You need enough oxygen. So the capillaries, we're trying to use all these muscles and trying to gain the oxygen to deliver in order to, take the electron over to water and make CO2. And so, as you build your stamina, you can build your ATP and your oxygen carrying capacity. I was watching Peter Attia with Lance Armstrong, right? And he was my hero. And they're doping ultimately by adding red blood cells to add to the oxygen carrying capacity, which allowed you to do more, right? Had nothing to do with sugar, by the way. It only had to do with oxygen. If you can deliver more oxygen to the mitochondria, guess what? You can do anything. So we always forget, remember, glycation. My sister was blind. Her kidneys didn't function and she went heart failure at 52. Almost lost a limb. Why? Microvascular capillary damage. Remember, 98% of your vessels are capillaries. And they're damaged because what's the normal human glucose 100,000 years ago compared to today? Do you know? We don't.
Yeah, no.
Well, because if this is where Stephenson, back 120 years ago, in his work, where he was hospitalized for 2 years and ate only meat. And, look, we already know the story. You don't need another prospective randomized study. It's already there, right? You can live on only, meat, but you got to eat the blubber, by the way. But the simple answer is that we were taught that sugar becomes our fuel, right? We were taught that amino acids, not so much, right? And that fat, right? And so, but we forget that, and Otto Warburg basically proved that glucose was the cause of cancer. Glucose through glycation damages your mitochondria. If a cell no longer has enough functional mitochondria to survive, it either dies, or if it's able to utilize enough ATP made in the cytoplasm via pyruvate to lactate, then it becomes a cancer cell. Now, why do cancer cells metastasize? Because they're in the wrong environment. Like all us humans, when you feel like you're in the wrong environment, what do you want to do? You want to move. So the cancer cell is ultimately every cell of your body contains all the knowledge of the universe. It's going to say, what are you guys doing to me? I'm going to get out of here. It wants to thrive and survive and proliferate. But the problem is the dietary environment that we have given it is deadly for many of us. Now, why do only 10% of people who smoke cigarettes get lung cancer? I don't know. Why did Sarah Hallberg get lung cancer and she was a non-smoker? My theory is because we're still eating a high plant-based diet, even if it's keto. Keto, unfortunately, is a phrase that could be confusing. And fasting, I call it intermittently feasting. When you intermittently fast, it means you intermittently don't eat. Well, you want to fast for 23 and feast for 1. That is the very best one. Now, if you can go 2, 3, 4, or 5, and you're going to build your autophagy, and I mean, these are great scientific concepts, but I think they're confusing for most simple people like me. The simple answer is your body only burns fat, and you need only 1 meal a day or less, never more than that. But if you're getting too skinny on that 1 meal, add fat, because fat is twice the calories. And no one's going to say, can I have that salad instead of that porterhouse ribeye fatty steak if you really need the right fuel for a human Ferrari?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you, you mentioned, obviously you're still doing surgeries as well. And you mentioned endometriosis. I've had a number of people ask me if, a carnivore diet can help with this. I just don't know the answer. Is that something that you had success with from a dietary perspective, or is it still just the traditional methods of treating that?
Well, we all still do our traditional methods of surgery, of Lupron or Lissa, letrozole, but here's the simplest. If the bowels are damaged, then lectins, oxalates, phytates, and all inflammatory microbes, plus the chemicals, get into your body. The colon and the small intestine, they cover over the uterus, pelvis, the ovaries, and the peritoneal cavity. And so when you damage the glycobiome, you absolutely cause endometriosis. You cause pelvic scar tissue. You cause damage or loss of tubes. You cause adenomyosis, endometriosis, fibrosis. You cause dysfunctional labor and early pregnancy loss and later losses and fetal demises. Wow. So endometriosis is just another disease in the whole bucket of diseases caused by the predatory plants. So I've seen so many carnivores like Dr. Kiltz, I have no more pain on my menstrual cycles. I'm not bleeding and my endometriosis goes away. So, if you think about it, like chemotherapy, we give chemotherapy to kill your cancer cells. Now, where does most chemotherapy come from?
Plants.
Plants.
Yeah.
Okay, so the plants, we give a drug to kill you, but just before you're dead, we take it away and we pray that your body's able to heal. Okay. Yeah. So what if we stopped feeding the fuel for the cancer, which is glucose, antigens, phytochemicals, and fermentation? And remember, what's one of the best ways to damage DNA? Is to heat it up. See, fermentation in the colon and the small intestine is simply an exothermic reaction. It makes beer and it makes heat. Why do some people get damaged and disease and other people don't? I don't know. But everyone gets something, because smokers, if you don't get cancer, you're going to get heart disease, strokes, or something that's going to damage you. And so ultimately, all the things neurologists, neurosurgeons deal with, fertility, gynecologists, primary cares, all of us deal with, gastroenterologists. Remember, it's this story. I was talking to an oncologist who's suffering from infertility at age 32, right? And she's an oncologist, but where the struggle is emotionally, we've learned all these things, and our patients rely on us for the knowledge that the healthcare system has given us. But now I'm failing, and now I'm going to tell them to eat steak and heal. I mean, my medical school here in Syracuse told me, zip it. You talk about this. And I was reported to the Office of Professional Misconduct in New York for discussing keto carnivore, right? My job, and like I believe all doctors' jobs in life, we're consultants and counselors, and we're coaches and cheerleaders. We're working together. And our job is to discuss options. Your job is to decide what you want to do, and we will do our very best to carry that out.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, but so all the common reproductive problems are due to, oats, seeds, nuts, vegetables, fruit, fiber, and all things made from plants.
Perfect. Yeah. So like that's, when I was looking into, PMS, PMDD, PCOS, things like that, I just found just endless connections to, diet, nutrition, and these sorts of things. And certainly with PCOS, that seemed to just go away. PMDD, I didn't see as much information, but I did find some things that really suggested that's exactly what was going on.
There are when I see patients with the double cystic fibrosis, DNA genetic mutation, and they don't have cystic fibrosis.
Yeah.
And then when I was talking to Huntington's, she's been diagnosed with Huntington's disease. Now she has the double markers, but she has no symptoms. Okay, so now I've already told you you've got the disease and you're gonna die of it, right?
Yeah.
Now that's already a negative that we told people. But when you hear about sickle cell and all the genetic varieties we have, likely were developed in some environmental milieu that was beneficial to have this DNA, right? And so she told me that it's a 50 to 75% chance that I'm going to get Huntington's or die of it. I said, well, my sister died of diabetes and my best friend died of cancer, and my bet is now we're doing like unique individual personalized medicine. We're going to look at all your DNA, and then we're going to tell you, you're going to get this, and this, and you better get your babies now and take out your ovaries or your breasts. But that's built on a standard dietary regimen.
Yeah. Not
understanding that heat is the best way to denature DNA. And so are the chemicals that we use. And remember, chemotherapy and radiation therapy both have secondary cancers that they cause. So, these ideas are really radical. And Thomas Seyfried wrote a book that cancer is a metabolic disorder and taught me about Otto Warburg.
Yeah.
And basically you can attach glucose to a radioactive nucleotide, inject it, and it goes to cancer. Well, why does it go to cancer? Because cancer cells have dysfunctional mitochondria, and they utilize glucose in their cytoplasm to make ATP. No other cell in your body does that. Why? Because again, it's damaged mitochondria due to hyperglycemia or elevated glycans that you and I are born with. Remember, you're born with it. You are bathed in a high sugar environment in your mother's womb, and you're eating. Now everyone's eating a formula. Even my daughter, I hate to say, I fed her a formula, which is all made of plants. Yeah. And she argues with me, but she's smart as shit, and she's supposed to. But it really is an amazing concept. Now we have a shortage of baby formulas. Well, what happened to the breast? And the reason the breasts aren't working today, do you know why? Because the glycobiome is damaged by glycation. And so the cells of the mammary glands can't make milk because we're bathing ourselves, we're marinating our bodies in glucose.
Yeah.
Your glucose should be 40 to 60 all day long. It should not be. Now, the reason I'm going to use the word, I eat sugar, a cane, I love it with my ice cream, is because a simple sugar is far better than a complex sugar.
Yeah.
Now, why? Because you eat a simple sugar, it goes quickly into your hepatic portal system, it quickly goes to your liver, insulin quickly chimes in and converts you to fat. Your glucose level lowers, your insulin level lowers. Remember, if you're a faster, so remember, insulin resistance. If I'm always have complex carbs in my bowels, always remember, it takes 3 days for most complex carbs to go from your mouth to in your toilet, right? Maybe, right? And if I'm eating 3 carbohydrate meals a day, the bucket always has, guess what, digesting in it?
Yeah.
Sugar.
Yeah.
So sugar into the bloodstream, what's your insulin going to do? Is that insulin resistance? Nope. It's false. Insulin resistance is false. The deadliest thing is an insulin pump. I'm going to pump you full of insulin. If you're always on a pump of insulin, what must you always eat?
Carbohydrates.
That's right.
Yeah.
And remember, lettuce, kale, vegetables, fruit, fiber, avocados, and seeds and nuts are carbs. I'm sorry, an avocado is not a fat. It's a fruit. Last I looked, it's a sugar and it has fiber. Fiber F's us up and it's deadly. Deadly. I see all these, oh, you need your fiber. Like if you want cancer, please chime in. It's like steel wool and sandpaper to damage the glycobiome. Glycobiome, glycocalyx is the Teflon shield that is the only thing we are damaging that causes all disease. That's really, really the concept and idea here.
Nice. Yeah. So you were saying you're really just eating just the meat and the butter and some cream, and you have some coffee. Is that just, so you're fairly strict, I would say. And you say, and then sometimes you have a bit of a treat or something like that. Okay.
So treats and rewards are natural to human beings. Don't ever use the word, what am I thinking? The opposite of treat and reward is punishment, right?
Yeah.
And because you never want to punish this human being. And so, again, I have water and coffee. I sometimes add the butter. A month ago, I was off coffee for 6 weeks, for a week. Last year, 6 months. I come and go. I love it. But, and Raymond from Steak and Butter Gal Coaching is, he called me on it that I am addicted, right? But we're all addicted to something. So, but yeah, ribeye steak every day, but I never measure it, but literally I might cook this much, but I only eat that much. And I'm like, okay, tonight I literally take it, I cut it up in pieces and I'll eat it. I cook it in a pan under the broiler. I make it black and blue. I add Maldon salt and butter, sometimes some blue cheese. I pour the fat right back over it. Because you see, the problem of barbecuing, you lose all the fat.
Yeah.
That's bad. And so that's my meal at like 5 or 6 o'clock, sometimes 4. I get up at like 3:30 to 4 o'clock or somewhere in there every day. I go to bed at 8 or 9, early to bed, early to rise. I watch and interact with all of this content in this health and wellness space regarding keto, carnivore, and I read or listen to books a lot, and I go to bed early.
Yeah,
and I do a little bit of, I'm as vain as anyone else, and in some way, I know that I carry a little fat, but I don't, I'm not trying to lose it. Recognizing that if I get sick and I need to fast for a week and I don't have any, it's not good for us. But yeah, then I make an ice cream. Oop. All right, I lost you. Sorry about that.
That's right.
Let's go there. I don't eat. I eat ice cream that I make. It's cream, an egg, a pinch of salt. I do a little vanilla bean, and I add a teaspoon or two of cane sugar. Now, again, it's my treat from time to time, not every day, once a week. The other day, I literally made my ice cream with no sugar. And it's still awesome and great to eat. And so reminding all of us, right? You go to a party and you go hang out with friends and family. Some people are, they can't touch that. Well, if you have strength and power over, all of this, you'll get whatever your habit is, you'll learn. But, I'm pretty strict. I rarely will eat chicken, some salami and cheese, but that's my night. I never eat salad, kale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli. I love garlic and onions and salsa. It's deadly for us of any frequency or any amount.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you talk about your Facebook community as well, talking about obviously having this support structure and having this sort of sense of community. Can you tell us a bit more about that as well?
Well, I do this because my mother loved to talk to people. My father just liked to hang out at home, and I got my mom's genes. But as a physician, what I realized is that we can help so many more people by sharing our ideas and content, but it's because we do it. Our standard doctors were doing this, don't smoke, and, you got to be skinny and all this stuff. And they're not the models, right? And so the community in the village is critical. We have Facebook groups. I mean, many of them are just de novo created. But there are a lot more groups developing for support, counseling, coaching, but between Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and whatever they are. But I joined Bella's Steak and Butter gang, where I'm just a regular participant, but I like, we all participate as coaches and things like that. But the problem with medicine, it's sort of like it's up here, right? But you're probably in your 20s or 30s.
I'm 42, man.
Okay. All right. 42. So interesting enough, at 41, I lost a job, fired, had no money. And I was like, okay, I can't do this standard shit anymore. So I started seeing my fertility, and I integrated all this. But now with all this modality on social media, medicine is a new world. And really you don't have to sell or write a book. You simply create ideas, and people will stick around when you're honest, when you care. I don't monetize. I mean, I sell some of these things on Amazon. We sell some nutritional solutions, but my intent is not like, how can I monetize it? Yeah. It's really, wow, if I can help people that I never see, and I see on my blogs, hey, Dr. Kiltz, never met you, but I did this and I had a baby, and, or my IBS or arthritis, all but gone. So, it's the more people like you, especially starting off in medicine, it's a game changer. My mom and dad lived to 93. Her mother, my father's mother, did 103.
Nice.
My mother fell. She loved to climb and do things. And like at about 85, she was in the garage and she fell and got a intracranial hemorrhage. Right? Best thing that ever happened to her. Oh. And I say that in a way because we have to always imagine that whatever happens is part of the gift of the gods in our life. But, she didn't need neurosurgery, but, they were going to do it. But the people that took care of her were amazing. And my mother, through the journey, got better. She gained her strength, but over time, her body whittled. And at 93, she said, adios. My dad, a year later, said adios. But the connections that we have to do, anything you fight will fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you foster with faith and creativity and sharing in a way that just adds to more people on this journey. And again, even in the standard medical profession, I was invited to give a debate. As a fertility doctor, I train non-REIs to do fertility. And it's like, well, how can you do that? So I said I won't do it. But then I said, you know what, listen, if you want me to come and discuss how we can all help inspire and help more people that are suffering from infertility naturally, or train more people, because nowadays, it's not just doctors, MDs, DOs, it's RNs, NPs, PAs. And all you have to do is be a live human being with a pulse, and you could start, coaching people, mm-hmm. which is, again, how, between Maria Emmerich, by the way, is someone I learned about keto also. And again, it's through social media that is the new way of health and wellness. And when you need a surgeon, thankfully, there's some well-qualified and trained people that can do these things.
Yeah, true. And I think that would be great to get medicine back to what it was, for thousands of years, just dealing with pregnancy and childbirth and congenital disorders, traumas, and infectious disease, and then poisonings. And I think it would be great to get back to that and make a lot of doctors have a lot more time on their hands. And I think that'd be better.
I do pottery and painting, so it gives me more time to be in the studio.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Great. Well, Dr. Kiltz, thank you so much for coming on. I had an absolutely great time talking to you. I learned quite a lot from that. How best to get a hold of you and see your content and just see your stuff?
drkiltz.com and cnyfertility.com and are our best places. You can go to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Hey, you, Dr. Kiltz. And there's books on Amazon. You can download a lot of these books for free on our websites. And I think it's really, we're in a new era of crowdsourcing, community sourcing health and wellness. And we are integrating the new sciences with the ancient sciences. And I think that's important. We're not here to say modern science is wrong. We're here to say, well, hey, maybe, these things, we can do something different. Because I too utilize modern science. Mm-hmm. I think it's amazing, but our ancient nature that again, what you're sharing is really critical and important. So thank you for inviting me on today. I think we're going to do something in the near future. And I look forward to that conversation too.
So do I. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Kiltz. We'll have to do this again very soon.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Dr. Chafee. Thank you.
Thank you.